So hello, we have here now Ben Parker, who is co-founder and the head of enterprise projects of IRIN News. So could you please define us from your journalist perspective, maybe, what's the term localization for you? What does it mean?
Localization, from a journalist perspective, it looks like another piece of jargon from the aid industry. It's a word that is really now trying to carry too much meaning, I think. It's to do with equity, it's to do with justice, it's to do with redistribution of wealth and power, it's to do with guilt from the northern NGOs, it's to do with so many things all at once. So as a journalist, it's exactly the kind of language that we struggle to use and to communicate with to the public.
As a humanitarian practitioner, how would you define it?
Well, as a humanitarian practitioner, I think localization is the necessary priority. I think it's difficult to sort of force things, but certainly things definitely have to change, and the fact that there is a small oligopoly controlling most of the money and the influence in the humanitarian sector is clearly wrong and outdated. It's a function of history, it's a function of post-colonial economics and so on. If you're in Kenya, you can probably find enough Kenyans to do what needs to be done. And you shouldn't be flying in people from all over the world. So in that sense, it's right, it's the right time, it needs to happen. On the other hand, change generally doesn't, people who have power and money generally don't change just because they think it may be time. So I'm concerned that maybe the forces to make localization happen are not strong enough.
I see. And humanitarian response to disaster relief and to conflicts usually is quite different. So do you think we should approach localization the same way for both kind of responses?
I think for disaster relief, it's already happening in terms of natural disasters. Places like the Philippines, a number of countries in Asia now clearly can handle it themselves. And when they do need external support, they will know where to go and who to ask and the nature and the dimensions of it. So in that sense, I think in natural disasters it's easier. When you have a protracted conflict and a lot of coming and going and different parties and front lines, it's often one of the circumstances where internationals have an advantage because they can be neutral, they can cross the lines and so on. But again, they don't need to do everything.
What do you think the role of private sector could be in order to boost actually localization? Is it really needed, and how?
I think the private sector can threaten some vested interests, which is good. When I say vested interests, I could include major NGOs, UN agencies or departments of UN agencies who do procurement or transport or logistics or HR or IT or whatever. Many of these things can be outsourced to the private sector in the affected country, which I think would be better for the economy and so on. So I think the private sector needs to be allowed to compete with some of the internal processes that we have now.
And to my understanding, you've been working on humanitarian financing, so I would like to just address the last question on the Grand Bargain and localization. Do you see that it's actually been implemented already?
It's a bit early. For Grand Bargain. We're only 6 months from the summit as we speak today. And we had conversations about it today. I don't see really very many things that have actually happened, but I do think it's made people change internally, and a process has begun, and you will see more use of cash, yes, more attention to the local agenda. You'll see some work on efficiency and rationalization, and some of the other stuff in there, I don't know.
But do you see these changes to come from only one type of actors, for instance NGOs, or do you see this change also starting governmental agencies and other actors?
always find this a bit strange, because the people who pay the bill have the influence. So it is a bargain, but the bargain really is one-sided, because you've got USAID, European Union, and the British and the Nordic countries. They could say what they want, and they can make it happen.